Welcome to Word Alive. Today we're going to have a look at Genesis 12. It all begins with a voice, not just any voice, but the voice of the Lord calling one man into the unknown. Verse 1. Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land I will show you. Here we see the first major emphasis from God, separation for revelation. God doesn't give Abram a roadmap, he gives him a relationship. The emphasis is trust. Leave everything familiar so I can show you something greater. This is about being unrooted from the old world to rerouted in God's plan. We're reminded of this in Hebrews 11. By faith, Abraham, when he was called, obeyed by going out, not knowing where he was going. This wasn't blind faith, this was obedient faith, according to the voice of God. And then God unfolds a breathtaking promise. Starting in verse 2, it says, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and making your name great, so you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. God's emphasis here is his initiative. Count how many times he says, I will. This is a covenant built on God doing, not Abraham's striving. God's promises, nationhood, legacy, protection, and most significantly, a worldwide blessing from Abram. And here the New Testament light shines brightly. In Galatians 3, it says, and the scripture preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, all the nations will be blessed in you. This isn't just a family line, it's a preview of Jesus, the seed through whom salvation would come to the nations. Genesis 12 is the beginning of the gospel. What does Abram do in response? In verse 4 it says, so Abram went forth as the Lord had spoken to him. Abram was 75 years old. He was not a spring chicken. In those days, their days were generally 120 years max. He was no spring chicken. He'd gone well past halfway. But what did he do? At the age of 75, he departed from Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan. And thus they came to the land of Canaan. He doesn't argue, delay, or ask for confirmation. He just goes. God spoke and he obeyed. At 75, when most of us are slowing down, Abraham is just beginning. And as he arrives, the story takes a profound turn. In verse 6, it says, Abram passed through the land as far as the site of Shechem. Now the Canaanite was there in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land. So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. Now God appears and gets quite specific. This very land, occupied by others, will one day belong to Abram's descendants. You see, Abram had no children and his wife was barren. And yet God speaks in the future tense by saying, I will give. Here God emphasizes not only promise, but presence. The Lord appeared. God is not distant. He shows up, confirming the journey. It's not a guessing game. It's guided by his grace. What was Abram's response? He built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. So God said this, he took him at his word and then worshipped him. Abram worshipped, just built an altar. Those days, an altar was a place in which they was significant, and he worshipped. This altar isn't just a pile of stones. It's a declaration. God, I trust you here. Even when I don't fully understand it yet. This becomes a pattern. God speaks, Abram worships. But then comes a disruption. Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe. This verse is quiet but heavy. There's no mention of God sending Abram to Egypt. The famine pressured him, and like we often do, he takes matters into his own hands. And under pressure, fear grows. In verse 11, he is now at a place where fear rather than faith. As a consequence of living by the pressure of fear, his faith is diminished. In verse 11 it says, I know that you are a beautiful woman. He's talking to his wife Sarai. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me. Please say that you are my sister. Fear overtakes faith. The same man who trusted God to leave everything now trusts deception to protect himself. This isn't the shining moment of Abraham's story. It is deeply human, and yet God's covenant doesn't collapse under human failure. In verse 14, it says, Pharaoh's officials saw her. The woman was taken into Pharaoh's house, but the Lord struck Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. You see, God steps in. Even when Abram compromises, God protects the covenant line. It's a powerful foreshadowing of what God will do again in Exodus. Protect his people from Pharaoh through plagues. This whole chapter points forward. God begins a promise, confirms it with presence, and sustains it through protection, even when the person he calls stumbles and falls. Verse 18 it says, Then the Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is it that you have done to me? This is your wife. And goes, Take her and go. Pharaoh commanded his men to escort them and not do any damage. And they escorted him away, and he and his wife and all his belongings, including the belongings that the Pharaoh had given him, they left. Despite the failure, God doesn't reject Abram. He leads him out with everything intact. It's grace in motion. Not because Abram earned it, but because God, in his faithfulness, wanted to finish what he started. He was not just interested in Abraham, but the line to which Jesus Christ comes from. And in the New Testament, this all unfolds fully. Jesus, born from Abraham's line, is the one through whom all nations are blessed. So when God told Abram that all nations will be blessed through you, here's the fulfillment of that: Jesus Christ. The land Abram is known because parts of the kingdom conversation Jesus fulfills. The altar of faith becomes a symbol of the cross, where God again initiates salvation in the New Testament. And Romans 4:11 calls Abraham the father of all who believe, not by blood, but by faith. You see, Genesis 12 isn't just about Abram's journey. It's about our journey as well. It's about the journey of all believers. God still calls people to leave what's safe, trust what's unseen, walk by faith, not by perfection. And just like Abraham, we'll stumble, we'll fall, we'll try to do some things ourselves, but God's faithfulness won't stumble or fall. God's faithfulness will carry us through. In Proverbs 2:6, for the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth came knowledge and understanding. You see, God will continuously be there to help us. When we fall, he'll give us words. He'll give us life. He'll help us to no longer stumble. He'll help us with wisdom to know how to better do things in the future. And even better is for us to initially come to God and seek his wisdom. In James 1, it says, But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, and let it be given to him. So you ask God, you worship the King, and then you take the next step of faith. God bless, and I'll see you in the next episode.